Hey travelers, I'm back. This time on Tales of Erotasy, we discuss my favorite websites when it comes to writing for tools of your trade. I didn't get a chance to read anything in the last couple of weeks, so I don't have a review for you, but I do have an excerpt of my story at Lady Olubayu's Bordello to be read. Other than that, I'm just kind of spitballing it. So sit back, relax, and join me down the roads of Erotasy. Welcome to Tales of Erotasy, a place for lust, lore, and legend. I'm your host, Erica B. If it's your first time here, thank you so much for joining me down these roads of sci-fi and fantasy, romance, and erotica. If you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. Speaking of those returning, I am so sorry that I've been AWOL for the last 2 weeks. Life sometimes gets in the way. I had some stressful times at my day job, and then also last week I got ridiculously sick and I just was not up for recording a podcast. But don't worry, baby, I'm back for you this week. Though I'm kind of thinking I might change to do a podcast every 2 weeks to give myself a little leeway. All that being said, again, thank you for coming back. I hope you've been having a great last couple of weeks. I know there is a lot going on in the world right now that for some may be very frustrating, and I'm just going to say this much. We're going to get through it some kind of way like we always do. We're just going to have to, come together and stick together and remember that everything that's going on affects us all in some way. There have been so many terrible things that have happened through the course of history that somehow humanity made it through, and we will get through these things as well. So, if nothing else, I hope today you can take away that there is some hope out there, even if the times feel hopeless. So I just wanted to say that because it's really been on my mind. And there have been a few times where lately I've been feeling quite hopeless. And I just keep telling myself, Erica, this is going to be better someday. You'll see. And honestly, if you think times are great right now, this might not be the podcast for you. I cannot agree with that at this time. All right, so that's off my chest. Honestly, this podcast episode might be a little unstructured because I kind of just feel like talking. And between being sick and busy, I haven't really had a time to read anything new. So I probably will just kind of be chit-chatting today. I hope that's okay with you guys. Though I do have a little something for tools of your trade for us writers out there. A couple of things, or rather a couple websites that I think are pretty much invaluable, not just to smut writing, but also to writing in general. So let's get started with that first. Okay. Now, I really never thought about this until I think I read it on a Reddit subreddit a few years ago, maybe like a year ago. And it was talking about how most people of color are described via some kind of food. And I never really thought of it. And once I started thinking of it, I realized it actually does kind of bother me. So, I'm happy to be called my husband's chocolate pudding in private, but in reading a story, I'm kind of getting tired of people who look like me being described as things like mocha or caramel or things like that. Oh, sweet coffee with cream. Ooh, nah. I like food, but I don't always want to be described as food. So a great resource I work on or use quite often is the website Writing with Color. And and yes, writingwithcolor.tumblr.com, and it gives you a great list of skin tone descriptions, all kinds of things I never even considered for every skin tone, underlying tone, main color, all that. It's all in there. Blacks, browns, beiges, whites, pinks, you name it. It'll give you a great idea on a descriptor, so you don't have to rely on, oh, her skin was like milk. I mean, honestly, is milk really that great? Okay, don't answer that. I know some people love milk. I am personally lactose intolerant, so sometimes when I'm reading my smut, I don't want to be reminded of the fact that, you know, if I have milk, I'm going to have a problem in the bathroom later. You know what I mean? My second little writing buddy is Power Thesaurus. Simple. It's powerthesaurus.org. Sometimes when you're writing, the same words keep popping in your head. I mean, originally, there's only so many ways. Not originally. Well, that's not what I meant to say. Sometimes the words do get repetitive. I mean, you can only use cock so many times before you kind of get tired of it. But if you use something like Power Thesaurus, it gives you a nice handy dandy list of deliciously smutty words that you can use in place of, you know, throbbing cock, you know, rod, tool, things like that. Manhood. Hot dog? No, don't use hot dog. That's not sexy. Please don't use that one. Okay. Another one that is helpful would be, you know, using Wikipedia for sex positions. I mean, honestly, I'm older now. I'm in my 40s. God, I'm in my mid 40s basically. And I'm not as flexible as I used to be. So sometimes thinking about sex positions is a little hard. And then just going to the Wikipedia and looking up sex positions, it gives you some ideas on some things you may have forgotten because you've gotten so used to kind of being vanilla. I know I read a lot of smut, but honestly, sometimes I can't think of any good sex positions. So looking it up on Wikipedia does help. I mean, how many times can you write about missionary before it gets old? I mean, oh boy, reverse cowgirl. Who hasn't done that 40 times? And, you know, of course, there's always the reverse spider monkey. Don't ask questions you don't want answers to. Anyway. So, yeah, I mean, hey, listen, there's always a Kama Sutra out there, but if you want to kind of protect your browser history, Wikipedia is always a good resource to looking things up and still feeling like you're not looking up something naughty, which there's nothing wrong with that, and I do not judge. You look at what you want to look at unless you're in a state that has barred porn. I'm sorry for you if you're one of those people, but everyone else, you want to kind of keep it on the down low. Wikipedia is a great resource for just getting some ideas on smutty positions. And the best resource you can use as a person who's doing erotica writing is actually our erotica writers on Reddit. It's a great... You need to, if you are a smut writer right now, go to that site, sign up for Reddit if you haven't already signed up for a Reddit account, and make sure you subscribe to erotica writers because it's invaluable. You can learn so much about the trade. It's ridiculous. It's almost like a cheat code, honestly. People who have been in through the ringer are very happy to offer their advice. And I've learned a lot of stuff just by perusing it. I don't really participate in the actual subreddit because I'm kind of shy. I know that might surprise you, but I am kind of shy. And like I said, I've learned a lot of stuff, like what do you do if your book has been dungeoned by Amazon? Things like that. I definitely don't feel like I would have gotten as far in my erotica writing journey if it hadn't been for that particular subreddit. I mean, there's a lot of great subreddits in general when it comes to writing and writers, but specifically for launching a career as a self-published erotica writer, you need to go there. That needs to be your number one place. All right. Like I said, I really haven't had a chance to read anything recently, which is really sad. I mean, honestly, once nighttime hits after a long day of work, I just basically have been vegging out watching YouTube or Severance. God, that show is crazy. If you're not watching it, check it out. Great stuff. Weird stuff, but great stuff. Also, occasionally playing a video game. Right now I'm into Avowed, which I think Avowed is a fairly decent game. It feels a little bit like Skyrim, which is always good, because God knows I've lost so many hours to Skyrim. But honestly, the only downside about Avowed is one of the main characters, one of your companions, is Kai, and he's voiced by the guy who does Garrus Vakarian. And it's like, that voice is like honey butter dripping all over my body, and you're telling me I can't romance this character? I think that was a misstep on behalf of Obsidian, because, I mean, it's Garrus Vakarian's voice. How am I supposed to live my life not hitting that? I'm sorry. I'll be honest with you. That's how I feel. Nothing is going to change my view. That voice is delicious, and I want it all over my body right now, please, and thank you, sir. Do not judge me for it, okay? Do not, because I'm not the only one out there. If you go right now to AO3, that's Archive of Our Own, and look up Mass Effect fan fiction, there is plenty of Garrus Vakarian sexy stories. Some of them are magnificent, and you should be reading them right now. Listen, I've gotten a lot of great ideas from reading some of those stories, and there's nothing wrong with that. Honestly, fan fiction is one of those things that I think that most writers need to probably, well, yeah, I'm going to say it that way. It's a really good way to get started in the career, because you're just playing in someone else's world. So it kind of helps you build up your confidence, and also, you know, relying on someone else's structure teaches you how to do your structure. So I think fan fiction is very, very important in the writing community. And if there's a story or show that you love, or a movie or a book or anything, I guarantee you on Archive of Our Own, it's on there. Somebody else has written about it, and it's fun to enjoy. And as always, if you do enjoy something, give kudos. You know, just a little blurb. I like this. This is great. Blah, blah. I honestly, just even a little bit of a review is like heartwarming for an author. As I always said, you know, having that little bit of praise really helps you keep going. So if you read it and you enjoy it, make sure you let the writer know, because they need it. So I haven't really had a chance to read a whole lot of stuff, but I have been writing. As a matter of fact, recently I did a story that is definitely outside of what I normally write. It wasn't even smutty. It's a short story called Once We Were Free. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, there's a lot going on in the world, and just inspiration totally hit me. And I wrote a story about Baltimore being closed off from the rest of the world during a world war, and only people who are considered what people call DEI at the moment are inside the city. And the story is about the first time white people started showing up, like people who you would assume would be in power start showing up into the city, and a relationship between the first person like that and also the main character whose point of view the story is in. And I think it turned out really well. It came out of nowhere, and it just, I don't know. Like I said, it's not something I would normally write. And it's kind of funny that after I finished with that one, and I was so nervous about posting it on my Substack. I thought people were going to come after me because it is very politically charged, but so far no one has even mentioned it. A few people have read it and enjoyed it from what I understand, but I really thought people were going to come at me. So far so good, knock on wood. I don't want that for myself personally, but I mean, it definitely has inspired me to come up with other stories kind of in a similar vein. I don't know. I mean, listen, I'll be honest. I would love to be the next Octavia Butler. I don't think I'm that skilled at all, but I wouldn't mind being remembered like her because her stuff was really powerful, and there aren't many women, not many people who look like me who are famous sci-fi fantasy authors, and I hope someday to be up to snuff, or at least halfway up to snuff. That ultimately is my writing dream goal. I don't care about being famous per se, but I want to inspire somebody else out there, and it would be nice to be known for this particular genre, but I don't expect it. I don't need it to continue writing. I'm just going to continue writing because it makes me happy. But, I mean, again, I wouldn't mind being remembered, if at all possible. I hope that makes sense. I really do feel like I'm rambling on, but hey, I guess that's what podcasts are for, right? Outside of that, I have been keeping up with my weekly post for The Last Son of Danu, which I am personally very proud of myself for keeping going. It's not getting a whole lot of looks, but I mean, hey, it's enough that I feel pretty good. It really feels great to finally have this story come together because it's been in my brain for so long. So many moons, and it's here, it's real, it's a thing, and I finally got a like on one of the chapters, actually the most recent chapter, A Wolf in the Alley. Now, keep in mind, on Substack, I'm naming the chapters, but on Inkit, I'm not naming the chapters. I don't feel like it's necessary on Inkit, but when it's on Substack, it's the only way to really maybe suck somebody in, hopefully. And I'm very excited. Actually, by the time this drops, the chapter that I'm really excited about, hold on. No. So, I guess I can give you a little taste of what's coming. So, not this next chapter, but the chapter after. So, I guess that would be on, let's take a look at a calendar here. Probably March 11th drop is the chapter that I don't know how to describe this better than, I mean, I already described the story as my baby, but this chapter is like the chapter. Kay and Dina finally meet, and there's like this magical moment between the two of them that really sets up the entire story on their dynamic. And this is stupid because, I mean, I created these characters. Well, actually, no, I'm gonna take that back. Nate created Kay. That's his character. Nate is my husband, in case you didn't know. And that this is the moment that made me fall in love with the character, Kay. Which, I know that sounds strange because I'm the one writing it, but this is the moment. And I'm truly, truly psyched about finally having someone else out there read it, hopefully. I mean, who knows, no one may ever read it, whatever, but just having it released into the world, I'm like Twitter-pated. I cannot wait, and I'm nervous, of course, because this scene means so much to me, and it just, I can't believe I finally gotten to a point where I have it. Like it's not a physical copy because it's not, a in-hand book, but to see it on a page and released in the wild is like crazy and exciting and scary. And now I feel like I'm hyping it up too much. I don't know if anyone will like it nearly as much as I do, but I'm hoping someone out there will also enjoy that one. Yeah, so that's going to be March 11th episode or chapter. Honestly, I haven't really decided if I'm going to do... I'm kind of leaning towards maybe doing paid subscriptions if this story ever picks up, so that people who pay to subscribe to Tales of Erotasy can get their chapter like over the weekend or something, and then everyone else can read it on Tuesday. But I haven't really fully decided if I'm going to do that or not. I think I would be kind of embarrassed to set up subscriptions and then nobody ever reads it or never subscribes. But I don't know, that was an idea I'm tinkering with. I'm just happy that I'm keeping up with it, because I thought maybe, honestly, I would crap out after a while after not getting that many views. But I really need to stop beating myself up, because this last chapter did get like 50 views, which is better than 0. Not as great as 100, but definitely better than 0. I mean, that's all a girl can really ask for when it comes to writing, right? Speaking of Substack, I got to give a mad shout out to Alex and Aria. They recommended me on their Substack, Intimacy Unlocked, and ever since then I've had a trickle of subscribers, like maybe one every other day, and that's really cool. I'm honored that anyone would ever recommend piddly old me in their Substack. So I gotta say thank you so much to them for sending people my way. I'm pretty sure I have it set up for the opposite, but honestly, Substack still is an enigma on some occasions. And, you know, if you have a newsletter, honestly, I've done both MailerLite and Substack. MailerLite is really good, but honestly, I think I recommend Substack a little bit more, because there is a social media aspect to it, and it does make it a little bit easier to get some people to, take a look at your Substack. But also, what I'm going to recommend is definitely Story Origin. Story Origin is a great resource. If you do like a free story, they recommend like about 10,000 words. They have a way that'll let you sign people up for your newsletter. And every time I decide to like share my free story, which is at Lady Olabayu's Bordello, I do get a bunch of people who subscribe to the newsletter. What you're going to have to do, though, is if you are using Substack, you would have to like have your list port into something like MailChimp or MailerLite or anything like that, so you can get those names and then add it to your Substack. That way, they'll be able to get the newsletter actually from your Substack. But yeah, that's definitely an excellent resource for anyone out there who is, doing any kind of self-publishing and want to get a little bit of exposure. It has greatly increased. As a matter of fact, I have a bunch of people I need to port over into my Substack, because I recently re-added my free story to newsletters so that people will sign up. Whoopsie, I'll get to you if you have done that. I promise. Like I said, work has been crazy. Then I got sick. I have definitely had setbacks. 100%. And it's very, very annoying. But hey, these things happen. I've decided to listen to my boss, Brittany, and give myself some grace. She's very, very big on that. And I appreciate it, because she's absolutely right. Not enough people out here give themselves grace. And that's like the biggest thing you need to do for yourself, is to give yourself grace. You are not perfect. Things are not going to go perfectly. Just do it, own it. If you can fix it, fix it. But don't beat yourself up if things aren't 100% perfect. And I feel like that is one of the biggest lessons I've learned from my boss. And she's a great boss. I'll be honest with you. I've been blessed with having some very great leadership at my day job, and having been under their tutelage really has helped me grow this aspect of my life as well, which, I'm always going to be very, very, very grateful to her and Darielle and Denise and all the wonderful ladies at my job that have, over the last few years at my day job, supported me and groomed me into a leadership role, which without them, I don't think I would have ever bothered trying to get into a leadership role. I didn't think of myself as a leader of any sort, but, you live and learn. It's a really good feeling. And again, while it helps me at my day job, it also helps me in this and being more secure, because I don't think I would have done anything like a podcast if I hadn't started developing those leadership skills. This is just something I never thought I could do or anything, but I think it's going pretty well. So there's that. Okay, I'm sorry. I got really, really sidetracked. Okay, for a little house cleaning here, I have a couple things for you. So a few years ago, I released a short story on Amazon. It's a short, smutty story called Tools of His Trade. It is a futuristic story, spacefaring, space opera about a male courtesan who is trying to get into service of the imperial princess of that universe. And finally, after all these years, I did the second part, and I'm going to release those stories every other month. In the middle, I have, let me back up. That series is called Her Majesty's Courtesan. It's available for free on Kindle Unlimited, $2.99 to purchase. Both chapters are about 5,000 words apiece. Total smut. Little plot, definitely plot in there, because I am a plot person. I like that. But there is some significant amount of smut. The second part is called The Lady in Waiting. So that actually just was released a couple weeks ago. Now, in between the releases of that, I have another series called The Seasons of Seduction, another futuristic royalty story, but it's set on Earth after an apocalypse or something like that the world has set up, where women are now in charge, and the focus is on the princess, who in this universe has 4 different lovers that she has to be with. Has to be is like, I don't know if that's the right word, but those are the 4 men her mother has chosen for her to be her concubines, basically. And each book is a different lover. The first one is Ren, and it's called, what is it called? Good Lord, you think I would know my own stuff? I'm telling you, I'm getting senile. Anyway, it's called Spring Serenade, Ren's Story. So that is available, and next month will be the Summer Prince's story. His name is Karn, or maybe Karen. In my head it's Karn, but I think the word is actually pronounced Karen. But be on the lookout for those. That's the summer story should be out at the end of March. So that'll be available, and I'll make the first story free for a week or 5 days, because Amazon only lets you do 5 days. So those are going to be available very, very shortly. Quick reads, fun. I've enjoyed writing them. I don't know. I'm very excited that I'm getting so much done when it comes to writing, because I feel like I've been putting it off for so long, and it really is truly something I enjoy. And it really is not even about the money, because I'm not making any money, but I don't know. I guess the having that happiness is better than having the money. But of course, if you want to buy them, I'm not going to be mad. And also, you can always tip me. I'll leave a link in for Ko-fi, whatever it is. It allows you to tip. So if you want to send me a tip, hey, be my guest. I'm not going to be mad about it. Yeah. I've been considering what I can offer you guys for a story. I think what we will do is have a reading from Lady Olubayo's Bordello, but I'm sorry, I can't read it myself. It's not in my voice. It's actually in a guy's voice in my head, so I don't feel comfortable reading it. I know that's stupid, but yeah, let's do that. I think a little taste of that story. It's available for free. If you you can also read it in the compilation Tales Dripping in Crimson. But yeah, let's do that. So without further ado, here is an excerpt from at Lady Olubayo's Bordello. I keep wanting to say diner. That doesn't make any sense. I don't want a story set in a diner. Or maybe I do. Let me know. But here it is. At Lady Olubayo's Bordello by yours truly, Erica B.
She placed the contract before her and signed it. Now, everything is official. You work for me. He grinned. Excitement had replaced any fear or reservations he had about taking the job. All he needed to know was one thing. What's next? That wicked gleam returned to her eyes. Now, I get to see your work. Jackson swallowed hard. I guess I'll have to learn to perform on demand, he thought to himself. Not that it would take much convincing to bed Olubayo. She had an air about her that screamed sex. Even something in the scent of her skin aroused. However, sleeping with the boss didn't sound like the best idea. The woman smiled at Jackson. I didn't mean with me. He sighed, both relieved and disappointed. His body, however, was still primed and ready for her either way. I have many gifts, she said. I can feel what you desire most. She ran her thumb across his bottom lip. He realized how much he wanted to kiss her. I know you want me, but I'm not your usual flavor of woman. It was true. Jackson always had a particular fascination towards chubby blondes with huge, soft breasts with delicious pink tips. Not something he would want to say out loud. Not where he was from, anyway. How many times had a young black woman admonished him for looking at white women? Especially his mother. She warned him to never bring a white girl home. Maybe it was the forbidden aspect that attracted him to that type of woman. The gleam in Olubayo's eye told him she could somehow sense his thoughts. For a moment, he felt panicked. She raised an eyebrow at him while maintaining her lewd smile. Don't fret, Pekin, she said. I promise you'll know nothing but pleasure. His eyes followed her as she returned to the opposite side of the desk. As soon as she sat, she picked up the receiver on an old-fashioned golden phone. To his surprise, it looked like a rotary phone. He hadn't seen one since his grandmother's kitchen ages ago. Can you send Blair Rose in, please? Thank you. When she hung up the phone, she returned her attention to Jackson. He must have appeared nervous again because she said, Trust Olubayo. A few moments passed, and a soft knock came to the door. It cracked open. You called for me, mistress? The voice, silky with a hint of a southern accent, instantly conveyed a sense of cheerfulness. Even without seeing her, Jackson could tell she was a naturally upbeat person. He turned toward the door, clutching the armrests as if they could keep him grounded. "Yes, come in," Olubayo said. "I want you to meet your new co-worker." As the door swung open, Jackson held his breath. Blair Rose stood there, embodying everything that piqued his interest. Big blonde curls bounced around her plump, round face, and her blue eyes sparkled as she looked at him. Her pink lips, forming a small O, appeared incredibly inviting. "Hey there," Blair Rose said. "Well, you're a handsome one, aren't you?" He couldn't suppress the blush spreading across his cheeks. She gave him the sweetest smile, tilting her head slightly. "This is Jackson," the boss said. "I was hoping you could assist him with his training." Blair Rose's smile turned seductive. Jackson's heart pounded in his ears. "My pleasure, as always, mistress." Blair closed and locked the door behind her. Sauntering over to the desk, she perched on the edge, leaving Olubayo a clear view. "Is this going to be your first time?" He shook his head rapidly. At 22, he'd had his fair share of lovers, but he couldn't say he'd had a lot of sex. The idea he might not be able to please the more experienced beauty troubled him, making him anxious. "Excellent." Blair clapped her hands together. "First things first, handsome. Why don't you take off your clothes?" His mouth moved, but no words came out. This was surprisingly awkward, but he stood from his chair and began unbuttoning his white shirt. "Do it slow, handsome. A girl likes a show." He'd never done a striptease before. In his head, he thought of the sexiest song he could at the moment. Pony came to mind. Jackson began singing the song to himself to do the right movements. The women before him recognized his quiet musical mutterings. Blair Rose began clapping to the beat of the song as she wooed at him to egg him on. First, the shirt fell to the floor, leaving him with only a white tank top in his pants. He flexed his arm muscles for the ladies as he gyrated his hips. Jackson worked out as often as he could, even though he hadn't the funds to go to the gym as often as he'd like. His arms were thick with well-defined muscles which pleased both ladies. Next came the undershirt. He ran his hands down the sides of his body until he reached the bottom edge of the shirt. In a leisurely and fluid motion, he pulled it upward. His audience was rewarded with a display of washboard abs and a chestnut brown chest. A smattering of black hairs covered his chest, and chocolate-colored nipples stood at attention, hardened with anticipation. With his right hand, he twirled the shirt a few times before tossing it across the room. He ran his long fingers across his newly exposed flesh. Blair Rose clapped with excitement. Olubayo shook her head but smiled, amused by the show. His hands trailed down his body again, this time to his belt. He turned away from them so he could psych himself up for what was to follow. The idea he'd be showing to complete strangers his rock-hard dick was not what he'd planned for the evening. Inwardly, he thanked himself for making sure he put on decent underwear. He let his pants fall to the floor as he jerked his hips in suggestive movements, allowing a view of his plump ass. As he gave it a shake, he dragged down his black briefs. "This is it," he told himself. His hand went to his dick, thick and ready for whatever came next. He stroked it a few times, making sure it was at optimal hardness. After a stroke or two, he turned around for the women and showed them everything he had to offer. "That looks delicious," Blair said, as her eyes focused on his manhood sticking out proudly from his body. She even licked her lips, hungry for him. "Do you mind if I have a taste?" "You can do whatever you want," he said. As he did, his dick throbbed, eager for her touch. She stood from Olubayo's desk and moved closer to him. Her hooded blue eyes couldn't hide her own desire. Using her fingertips, she traced the lines of his chest. When she found a hardened nipple, she gave it a gentle squeeze. He wanted to tell her that he didn't mind a less tender touch, but figured he'd let her play as she liked. Downward, her fingers went until she reached his belly button. Her index finger circled it. Once done there, she stroked the line of hair leading to his groin. "I do love a nice, happy trail," she whispered up at him. All Jackson could do was smile. Finally, her soft hand reached where he wanted her most. When she gave it a stroke, he threw his head back as his hips pumped towards her. Her hand felt so wonderful on him, smooth and hot. Here, she wasn't quite as gentle. She squeezed him just right. "You like that?" "Yeah," he said. "You'll like the next part so much better." She licked her lips again, then smiled playfully. Blair rose, reached for the chair he sat in earlier, turned it so the boss could have a side view of the show. Once seated comfortably, she stroked his manhood again. Ever so slowly, she leaned in. The buxom blonde gave a slight moan as her attention focused on the head of his cock. Her pointy pink tongue darted across her bottom lip as though preparing for a succulent meal. She moaned. "I love that little pearl drop on the tip," she said as she continued stroking his hardened length. Using that sweet little sharp tongue, she licked the head of him. Just a flick or two to lap up the droplet of pre-cum from his sensitive flesh. Jackson threw his head back in a groan. He felt her mouth open and let his dick sink into her depths. The sensation of slick heat sent shivers through him while she sucked on his member oh so perfectly. No one had ever given him head just how he liked it the first time. "Fuck!" he cried out. Blair rose, flicked the underside of his dick as she glided along him, placing pressure right at the tip. He felt massive between those pretty pink lips. He stared down at her, watching her bobbing head, blonde curls dancing around her head with each movement. Her half-lidded blue eyes gazed up at him while she worked. Her eyes held a mischievous twinkle in her eyes as she stared. Then, her mouth widened and took in the entire length of him. Jackson wasn't one to brag about the size of his dick, but he had to admit he had more length and girth than men he'd seen at the gym. No one, until that very moment, had easily deep-throated him as Blair was doing now. He saw stars in his eyes as she continued. "Damn girl," he gasped as he shuddered and bucked his hips. She drew him out of her mouth with a pop, then grinned. "Yummy," she said. Her hand began stroking him again. "That's a very nice piece you have there. Handsome." Her touch made it impossible to speak. With effort, he managed to smile, though it fell away as a wave of pleasure rocked him so hard, he threatened to bust a nut right there. Blair Rose must have read his mind as she grabbed the base of his dick, allowing him to cool down. Once he let out a shaky sigh and gave her a thumbs up, she laughed. It was a husky laugh deep in the back of her throat. If he weren't already wildly aroused, he would have sprung alive just hearing it. "Okay, now big boy, I'm going to need you to strip me." She stood from the chair, placing her body close to his. "But I demand to be seduced." His fuzzy brain barely heard her at first, but after a beat or two, The words sank in. Easy enough, he thought to himself. Just treat her like a lady and we're golden. With a wink and a nod, he began, first by bringing the back of his fingers to her rosy cheek. Slowly, he touched her skin with his knuckles, gliding along her soft features. She was so fucking cute. He could barely contain himself. But he knew he had to take his time and show the women his worth. His hand continued its journey until it found a strap of her white tank top. Using the tips of his fingers, he pulled the strap down her shoulder. Blair Rose bit her lip while keeping her eyes steady on his. The whole movement continued when he took care of the other shoulder strap. He didn't know how she found a top with a built-in bra sturdy enough to contain her large breasts. With a pull, he slid the sides down until those milky tits were free. With a light stroke, his fingertips danced along the soft, warm mounds until reaching their sweet pink peaks. When he pinched her nipples, her eyes closed as she moaned with delight, and she pressed herself closer. She demanded that he do it harder, and as he obliged, she sucked a breath in between her teeth. "Can I kiss you?" he asked. She gave him a crooked smile. "Normally, I'd say no, but I'll make an exception." Her agreement was music to his ears. Her parted lips looked like they ached to be kissed. He did so before the beauty could change her mind. Leaning in, he caught her bottom lip between his. His hands moved up her arms, past her neck, and into her silky, thick hair. Adding a tender pressure, he pressed the back of her head, intensifying their kiss. Their lips met in kiss after heat. Kiss until he dared to use his tongue to part her mouth. He groaned as he slid in with her welcome. Tongues twirled in a sloppy dance that made his entire body tingle. As their mouths continued to meet, his hands made their way to her jeans. He moved them between their bodies until he reached the top button. Once he opened it, his fingers traced around the waist until they reached her sexy round behind. Gliding his fingers along her underwear, he continued until both hands filled with her ass cheeks, which he squeezed. The beauty in his arms squealed with surprise. With effort, he pulled away from her lips. She looked up at him, eyes hazy with lust and curiosity. "Turn around," he murmured to her. She gave him another mischievous smile as she did as he requested. Once he was behind her, he placed his hands on her hips. He inched his hands up her body, past her downturned tank and under her arms. He lifted her arms so they could wrap around his neck. After placing them where he wanted, he danced his fingers down the exposed underside of her arms. She rewarded him with a soft, mewling moan while he touched her. And then he remembered the other woman in the room. He gave her a quick glance, wondering what she was doing while he indulged in Blair Rose. She stared at the pair, eyes so intense it frightened him. Her fixated eyes didn't watch in an aroused sense. Instead, Olubayo sat forward at her desk, clutching the edge with tense, shaking fingers. There was a wild madness in her eyes that took him aback. "Why is she looking at me like I'm food?" he thought to himself. It was only when Blair Rose quietly breathed the words, "Touch me," that he could come back to the task he was supposed to be doing. Despite the hint of fear Lady Olubayo's crazed eyes evoked in him, he knew he'd better continue what he had started. The end, for now. Check out the rest of the story in Tales Dripping in Crimson Volume 1. Go to books.ericabeal.com and purchase your copy today.
Alrighty, there you have it. An excerpt from Lady Olubayo's Bordello. Of course, if you want to read the rest, just go ahead and check it out at books.ericabeal.com, as the recording said. And then, of course, even better would be to purchase Tales Dripping in Crimson Volume 1, which is books.ericabeal.com/tales vol 1, the number 1 on that. Anyway, I hope you really enjoyed that. It's very, very strange hearing it being read, but you know what? Still a good time. Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to read that one out loud myself for some reason. If you want to check out any of my other works, just go to books.ericabeal.com and it's all available there. And also, if you want to check out my short story, Once We Were Free, if you go to my Substack, which is ericabealwrites.substack.com, you can check out that story. Again, that one's not smutty, but it is kind of political. So if you're not into political stories, I would say avoid it. But I feel like it really kind of helped with my writing growth. So, yeah. As always, thank you for joining me on this journey through lust, lore, and legend. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and, leave a review. It's the best way to keep the passion alive. Until next time, stay curious, stay daring, and keep on dreaming of worlds beyond.